20. Black celebs. With the most bizarre body parts you never noticed. Then and now, 2026. What if the bodies you thought were ordinary were actually hiding the most powerful stories of all? Behind the lights, awards, and applause, some of the greatest black icons carried physical traits the world barely noticed or chose to ignore. This is not about shock. It's about truth. In Legends of Black Excellence, we uncover how so-called bizarre body parts became silent symbols of resilience, identity, and power. Stay with us because these stories will challenge how you define strength and beauty. If this perspective surprises you, hit like, subscribe, and tell us. Are we finally ready to see greatness without filters? Manute Bol. Manute Bol remains one of the most visually unforgettable figures in basketball history, not because of fashion or theatrics, but because his body itself rewrote expectations. Standing at 7 feet 7 inches with limbs so long they seemed borrowed from myth. Bol entered the NBA in 1985, carrying both awe and doubt. Many assumed his unusually thin frame would snap under pressure, yet he quickly proved otherwise by leading the league in blocked shots during his rookie season. His reach disrupted offenses before they could even form, turning space itself into his ally. What does it mean when a body people label fragile becomes a defensive nightmare? Beyond the court, Bol's physical uniqueness shaped a life defined by purpose rather than spectacle. His height made him instantly recognizable, but he refused to be reduced to a curiosity. Instead, he used his platform to advocate for Sudanese humanitarian causes, reportedly donating millions and much of his earnings to relief efforts, traveling constantly, often at personal cost. Bol transformed visibility into responsibility. His body opened doors, but his conscience decided where he walked. In later years, injuries and health complications reminded the world that extreme physiques carry consequences. Still, Manute Bol's legacy stands firm. He was not a novelty act or a statistical anomaly. He was proof that difference paired with discipline and empathy can alter sport and lives beyond it forever. Nelson de la Rosa. Nelson de la Rosa occupies a singular place in cultural history, not because of spectacle, but because of presence. Born with primordial dwarfism, his adult height was under 30 inches, placing him among the smallest documented performers ever to appear in international cinema. In an industry obsessed with scale, symmetry, and dominance, Nelson's body challenged every visual assumption audiences were trained to accept. Yet he did not arrive as a novelty. He arrived as a working actor who understood timing, expression, and the power of being seen. Nelson appeared in films, television, and global media where his physical reality could not be ignored, but his professionalism refused to be overshadowed. Each movement required effort most people never consider, yet he carried himself with confidence rather than apology. His body demanded accommodations, but his ambition never asked for pity. That distinction mattered. He showed that visibility alone is not empowerment, intent is. Off-screen, Nelson's life required constant medical care and physical endurance, facts well documented and often misunderstood. Still, he navigated fame with humor and dignity, aware that representation itself was an act of resistance. Nelson de la Rosa did not redefine success by altering the world's standards. He redefined it by standing literally and figuratively inside them without disappearing. Dizzy Gillespie. Dizzy Gillespie was instantly recognizable long before audiences heard a single note. His inflated cheeks, which expanded dramatically while he played, were not a stage trick or an affectation. Medical experts later explained that this unusual appearance resulted from weakened facial muscles that adapted to years of intense trumpet pressure. What many assumed was odd became a visible signature of discipline, endurance, and technical mastery. Gillespie never attempted to hide it, understanding that authenticity often carries more power than polish. When a physical trait becomes inseparable from genius, do we still call it a flaw? Musically, Gillespie reshaped modern jazz. As a founding architect of bebop, he pushed tempos faster, harmonies sharper, and improvisation further than most of his peers dared. His trumpet lines demanded extreme breath control, which partly explains the physical adaptation audiences witnessed on stage. Those cheeks were not cosmetic accidents. They were evidence of labor. Each performance etched his commitment deeper into both sound and form. Offstage, Gillespie carried himself with humor, intelligence, and quiet confidence. He refused to let appearance define his worth, focusing instead on education, mentorship, and cultural diplomacy. Touring internationally, he represented not just American jazz, but Black artistic innovation at its highest level. Dizzy Gillespie's body did not distract from his greatness. It documented it. In every sense, his face told the same story as his music. Originality requires pressure, and mastery always leaves a mark. Salif Keita. Salif Keita's presence has always carried a striking visual contradiction. Born with albinism in Mali, his pale skin and light hair set him apart in a society where tradition and lineage carry deep weight. Albinism is a documented genetic condition, not symbolism or myth, and in parts of West Africa it has historically exposed individuals to fear, superstition, and exclusion. From an early age, Keita learned that his body alone could determine how the world treated him long before his voice was heard. Rather than retreating, Keita chose music as a path forward. Leaving his noble lineage behind, he built a career that blended Mande traditions with modern arrangements, eventually earning global recognition. His physical difference never defined his sound, yet it shaped the emotional gravity behind it. Songs carried themes of exile, dignity, and belonging without relying on spectacle. His voice, warm, controlled, and deeply expressive, became the focal point, forcing audiences to listen beyond what they saw. As his career expanded internationally, Keita used visibility responsibly. He became an advocate for people living with albinism, supporting education and awareness efforts, grounded in fact, not folklore. His life illustrates a powerful truth: difference does not weaken authenticity. Salif Keita did not transcend his body by denying it. He transcended limitation by allowing his art to speak louder than prejudice ever could. Yellowman. Yellowman emerged from Kingston's dance hall scene with a presence that audiences could not ignore. Born with albinism, his light skin and hair contrasted sharply with Jamaica's tropical climate and cultural expectations. Albinism is a verified genetic condition that reduces melanin production, making the skin far more vulnerable to sunlight and illness. For Yellowman, this meant a childhood marked by medical challenges and social stigma long before fame entered the picture. Yet none of these realities silenced his ambition. When society labels someone as an outsider from birth, where does confidence even come from? On stage, Yellowman flipped perception into power. His sharp lyricism, commanding delivery, and fearless engagement with the crowd redefined what a reggae frontman could look like. Rather than softening his image, he leaned into visibility, allowing talent and charisma to eclipse discomfort. His rise in the late 1970s and early 1980s helped push dancehall into global awareness, proving that presence is built through control and conviction, not appearance. Later in life, Yellowman faced serious health battles, including cancer treatments that left visible marks on his face. He never concealed these changes. Instead, he continued performing, reinforcing a career built on resilience rather than illusion. Yellowman's legacy is not rooted in shock value. It stands as evidence that authenticity, when sustained by skill and courage, can outlast every attempt to reduce a human being to how they look. Wilma Rudolph. Wilma Rudolph's story begins not with speed, but with stillness. As a child, she survived polio and complications that left her left leg weakened and twisted, forcing her to wear metal braces for years. Doctors warned her family that walking without assistance might never happen. In a country that celebrated physical perfection in athletes, her body appeared to be a permanent barrier. Yet recovery came slowly, powered by patience, relentless therapy, and a belief that progress could be trained like muscle. By her teenage years, Rudolph not only walked unaided, but discovered sprinting. Her stride, once restricted, became fluid and efficient, turning past weakness into refined mechanics. At the 1960 Rome Olympics, she won 3 gold medals, becoming the first American woman to achieve that feat in a single Games. Those victories were not miracles, they were measurable outcomes of years spent rebuilding coordination, balance, and trust in her own legs. Off the track, Rudolph's physical history gave her authority beyond medals. She spoke openly about disability access to care and opportunity, especially for young Black women whose struggles were often minimized. Her body was never edited out of her narrative. Instead, it anchored it. Wilma Rudolph proved that physical adversity does not vanish. It transforms. And when guided by discipline and vision, it can carry someone all the way to history. Abdullah the Butcher. Abdullah the Butcher forged a legacy written directly onto his body. His broad frame and deeply scarred forehead were not cosmetic choices or exaggerated myths. They were the documented result of decades inside wrestling rings where intensity outweighed aesthetics. Beginning his career in the late 1950s, Abdullah embraced a brutal style that rejected finesse in favor of raw presence. Each cut, each groove across his skin became a record of endurance in an era when wrestling demanded genuine physical sacrifice. When scars accumulate over time, do they become damage or testimony? Unlike performers who relied on athletic symmetry, Abdullah used intimidation as language. His appearance communicated danger before a match even began, shaping audience reaction without a single word spoken. Those scars were never hidden. They were deliberately displayed, reinforcing the authenticity that fans recognized immediately. In international circuits, especially Japan, his look and method earned respect, not as spectacle, but as proof of commitment to craft. Away from the spotlight, the consequences of such a career were unavoidable. Health complications followed, reminding observers that bodies shaped by violence carry long-term costs. Still, Abdullah never reframed his choices as regret. He understood the exchange he had made: comfort for legacy, smoothness for impact. Abdullah the Butcher did not fit conventional ideals of athletic beauty, nor did he attempt to. His body became a living archive of professional wrestling's most unforgiving era. In doing so, he left behind a lesson few dare to embody: that sometimes history is not written cleanly, but carved slowly, one scar at a time. Seal. Seal's face carries a history that fame never erased. Long before his voice reached international audiences, he developed discoid lupus erythematosus, a medically documented autoimmune condition that caused permanent scarring across his cheeks. These marks were not the result of violence, accident, or cosmetic choice, yet they became one of the most recognizable features in modern music. In an industry that often polishes away imperfection, Seal stepped forward without disguise. Rather than allowing appearance to overshadow ability, Seal anchored his identity in sound. His vocal range, rich, controlled, and emotionally restrained, created a striking contrast with the rugged texture of his skin. That contrast became part of his appeal, not a distraction from it. Listeners were drawn not just to how he looked or sang, but to the honesty that connected the two. His success in the 1990s was built on consistency and craft, not shock or explanation. As his career matured, Seal never rewrote his story for comfort. Interviews remained grounded in fact, avoiding exaggeration or myth-making. He refused to turn a medical condition into marketing, allowing the music to lead. Over time, his image challenged quiet assumptions about beauty, masculinity, and vulnerability within Black artistry. Seal's legacy proves that resilience does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it exists in the decision to remain visible, unchanged, and fully present, letting truth rather than perfection carry the performance. DJ Paul. DJ Paul's physical difference was present long before his sound reshaped Southern hip-hop. Born with a right arm that did not fully develop, he grew up navigating a world that often equates symmetry with capability. The condition was not the result of injury or later trauma. It was a congenital reality that shaped daily life movement and perception. Rather than masking it or turning it into spectacle, Paul treated it as background noise, never the headline. If your body breaks the mold from birth, do you fight visibility or redefine power on your own terms? In the studio, DJ Paul's approach was methodical and relentless. He learned to work equipment his own way, prioritizing precision rhythm and atmosphere over flashy technique. That discipline helped build the dark, hypnotic production style that became synonymous with Memphis rap, and later influenced mainstream hip-hop nationwide. His success with 3-6 Mafia was rooted in structure and vision, not physical conformity. Publicly, Paul rarely centered interviews on his arm, a deliberate choice that kept attention on the work. That restraint mattered especially in an era eager to reduce difference to narrative hooks. By refusing to perform vulnerability on demand, he maintained control of his image and legacy. DJ Paul's career demonstrates a quieter form of resilience. His body did not define his role, slow his ambition, or soften his authority. Instead, it coexisted with excellence. In doing so, he proved that innovation often comes not from overcoming difference, but from refusing to let it negotiate your worth. Tony Cox. Tony Cox built a lasting career in Hollywood while carrying a body the industry rarely knew how to categorize. Born with dwarfism, his short stature placed him far outside the conventional leading man image that dominated film and television for decades. Yet Cox never approached acting as an exception case. He seriously mastered timing and vocal control and understood that credibility on screen comes from presence, not height. His physical proportions were visible, but they were never the point. Cox's strength lay in contrast. He frequently portrayed characters with sharp intelligence, emotional restraint, or quiet intensity roles that challenged the audience's expectations before a line was even delivered. Rather than leaning into caricature, he used understatement as leverage. That choice allowed him to work consistently across genres from comedy to drama without being reduced to novelty. His performances relied on discipline and clarity qualities that outlast trends. Off-screen, Cox maintained a professional boundary between his condition and his craft. He did not market vulnerability or invite speculation, keeping the focus on longevity and work ethic. That approach proved effective in an industry known for typecasting. Tony Cox's career stands as a reminder that impact is not measured by physical scale. It is measured by consistency, self-control, and the ability to command attention without demanding it. His body never limited his reach. It simply revealed how narrow Hollywood's assumptions once were. Sean Ross. Sean Ross entered the fashion world carrying a presence that disrupted long-standing assumptions about beauty and masculinity. Born with albinism, his pale skin, light hair, and sharp features set him apart instantly in an industry historically built on narrow visual codes. Albinism is a medically recognized genetic condition, not an aesthetic choice, and for Ross it meant growing up highly visible in spaces that were often unprepared for difference. Instead of shrinking from attention, he learned how to command it. When the industry profits from conformity, who dares to turn contrast into authority, Ross's rise was not accidental. He approached modeling with intention, using posture movement and eye contact to create tension rather than softness. On international runways and in high-fashion editorials, his appearance became a visual counterpoint to traditional ideals, forcing designers and audiences to reconsider what strength could look like. He was never styled to blend in. He was positioned to confront. Beyond fashion, Ross expanded into performance and advocacy, speaking openly about identity representation and the psychological weight of being constantly observed. His body, often labeled unconventional, became a tool for dialogue rather than spectacle. He rejected the idea that albinism required explanation or apology, choosing instead to let professionalism establish credibility. Sean Ross did not redefine beauty by asking permission. He did it by occupying space with confidence and precision. His career demonstrates that visibility alone is not power, but when guided by self-definition, it can reshape an entire visual culture from the inside out. DeAndre Forrest. DeAndre Forrest emerged in the fashion industry with a presence that felt almost unreal, yet firmly grounded in fact. Born with albinism, his porcelain skin and light features contrasted sharply with traditional expectations placed on black male models. Albinism is a medically documented genetic condition affecting pigmentation, not an artistic fabrication, and Forrest never treated it as a costume. From the beginning, he approached modeling with restraint and precision, allowing stillness and subtle expression to do the work. Unlike models who rely on exaggerated movement or provocation, Forrest cultivated calm authority. His runway walk and editorial poses emphasized symmetry, balance, and quiet control. That composure redirected attention away from novelty and toward craft. Designers did not book him to shock audiences, but to introduce contrast that felt deliberate and elevated. His appearance challenged norms without attacking them, creating space rather than confrontation. Outside of fashion, Forrest became a visual reference point for broader conversations about representation. He demonstrated that albinism within Black identity is neither contradiction nor exception, but part of the natural human spectrum. By maintaining professionalism and avoiding sensational narratives, he ensured that his work remained rooted in credibility. DeAndre Forrest's impact lies in his refusal to dramatize his body. He did not need to explain it, defend it, or reshape it. Instead, he allowed consistency and discipline to redefine how difference can exist quietly and powerfully within elite visual culture. Victor Varnado. Victor Varnado built a career where intellect leads and appearance follows. Born with albinism, his light skin and hair made him instantly noticeable in spaces where audiences often arrive with assumptions already formed. Albinism is a medically recognized genetic condition, not an affectation, and for Varnado, it became an unavoidable part of first impressions. Rather than resisting that reality, he redirected attention toward language timing and ideas tools that cannot be reduced to surface traits. When people think they understand you at first glance, how do you quietly take control of the room? Varnado's comedy relies on clarity and restraint. He favors thoughtful observation over volume, allowing pauses and phrasing to do the work. This approach disarms expectation. Audiences arrive prepared to react to how he looks, then find themselves engaged by how he thinks. That reversal is intentional. By refusing to foreground his appearance, he denies it narrative power, letting intelligence set the frame instead. Beyond stand-up, Varnado has written, taught, and spoken publicly about creativity and self-definition. He avoids sensational explanations of albinism, choosing accuracy over drama. This discipline reinforces credibility, especially in a media environment eager for exaggerated backstories. His presence communicates that difference does not require performance to be valid. Victor Varnado's impact is subtle but lasting. He proves that authority can be established without confrontation, and that visibility does not have to be negotiated loudly. In his work, the body becomes incidental, while thought becomes unforgettable. Bushwick Bill. Bushwick Bill stood apart in hip-hop long before audiences understood why. Born with dwarfism, his short stature contrasted sharply with the aggressive, hyper-masculine image that dominated rap in the late 1980s and 1990s. In a genre where physical dominance often reinforced lyrical authority, Bill's body challenged expectations the moment he stepped on stage. Yet he never asked for accommodation or sympathy. Instead, he met the culture head-on with raw honesty, dark humor, and unfiltered emotion. Bill answered that question through voice and presence. His delivery was sharp, urgent, and unsettling, cutting through tracks with a tone that demanded attention regardless of appearance. As a member of the Ghetto Boys, he helped pioneer Southern rap's gritty realism, addressing trauma, mental health, and street survival at a time when few artists dared to speak so plainly. His physical size faded into irrelevance once the words landed. Off the microphone, Bushwick Bill lived with visible and invisible scars, including serious mental health struggles that later became part of his public narrative. These realities were documented, not dramatized. He did not glamorize pain, nor did he hide it. That transparency gave his work lasting weight. Bushwick Bill's legacy is not about overcoming size. It is about refusing to let size dictate authority. He proved that influence in hip-hop is earned through truth, intensity, and conviction, not inches or image. Cat Williams. Cat Williams has always carried a physical presence that defied traditional expectations of dominance. Slim, compact, and visibly smaller than many of his peers, he entered a comedy world where stature often amplified authority. Yet Williams never relied on size to command a room. His power came from rhythm precision and an ability to control silence as sharply as laughter. From his earliest appearances, it was clear that his body was not a limitation, but a deliberate contrast to the force of his words. When the messenger looks underestimated, does the message land even harder? On stage, Williams uses movement like punctuation. His quick steps, sudden pauses, and controlled posture transform a lean frame into a kinetic instrument. The contrast between his physical lightness and the weight of his commentary creates tension audiences cannot ignore. Social critique, political frustration, and cultural observation hit harder because they arrive from a figure many never expected to challenge power so directly. Offstage, Williams's physicality has often been misunderstood, folded into narratives that confuse appearance with instability. Yet his work remains disciplined and intentional. He crafts material carefully building momentum through language rather than volume. That restraint distinguishes him from louder contemporaries and reinforces his longevity. Cat Williams proves that presence is not about occupying space, but about shaping it. His body never needed to project intimidation. It projected awareness. In doing so, he redefined what authority in comedy can look like: sharp, compact, and impossible to dismiss. J.J. Weaver. J.J. Weaver represents a rare case where an uncommon physical trait quietly became an athletic advantage rather than a limitation. Born with polydactyly, a documented condition resulting in an extra finger on each hand, Weaver grew up fully aware that his hands did not match the standard template scouts expect to see. In most competitive environments, deviation invites doubt. In football, where grip, leverage, and control define success, his condition demanded a different evaluation grounded in performance, not appearance. On the field, Weaver's hands provided enhanced surface contact, aiding tackling control and ball engagement. Coaches and medical professionals confirmed the condition posed no functional impairment, and Weaver never required special accommodation. His training emphasized disciplined positioning and awareness, ensuring that physical difference never overshadowed fundamentals. Rather than becoming a talking point, his hands faded into the background as his productivity increased. Weaver's career highlights an often overlooked truth in professional sports biology: does not operate on a single blueprint. Not every variation signals weakness. Some simply require understanding rather than correction. Importantly, Weaver did not brand his condition or use it as narrative currency. He allowed performance to define relevance, keeping focus where it belongs on preparation and execution. J.J. Weaver's story is not about anomaly for shock value. It is about precision, trust in one's own build, and refusing to shrink from visibility. His success reinforces a grounded lesson in elite competition: effectiveness outweighs expectation, and difference only matters if you let others decide what it means. Taye Diggs. Taye Diggs carried a quiet physical difference long before his face became familiar to mainstream audiences. Born with extra digits on one hand, a condition known medically as polydactyly, he grew up aware that his body did not fully match the clean visual symmetry often celebrated in performance culture. During childhood and early training, that awareness created self-consciousness rather than advantage. For years, the instinct was concealment. Costumes, angles, and careful framing became shields against unwanted attention. When a detail you try to hide has never limited your ability, who are you really protecting? As Diggs matured professionally, perspective shifted. Acting demanded emotional openness, not physical perfection. His work in theater, film, and television relied on vocal control, presence, and credibility qualities unaffected by anatomy. The small difference that once felt like a flaw gradually lost relevance. Diggs did not publicize it for sympathy or narrative weight. He simply stopped treating it as something that required management. That decision marked a turning point in confidence. Throughout his career, Diggs maintained a polished image without rewriting his past. He chose accuracy over myth and restraint over exaggeration. The condition neither defined his roles nor distracted from them. It existed, documented, and real without demanding explanation. Taye Diggs's story underscores a subtle truth. Not every physical difference must become a defining chapter. Some details matter only until self-acceptance removes their power. His success reflects disciplined clarity and the understanding that presence on screen comes from conviction, not from perfect symmetry. Louis Rankin. Louis Rankin carried a physical trait that quietly distinguished him long before audiences focused on his voice or screen presence. Born with polydactyly, a medically recognized condition that results in an extra finger, his right hand became part of his lived reality rather than a public talking point. In Jamaica's dance hall culture, where image toughness and authenticity carry heavy weight, any visible difference can invite scrutiny. Rankin, however, never treated his body as something needing correction or concealment. Rankin's approach was grounded and unapologetic. His extra finger did not alter his performance, nor did it define his reputation. Instead, he built credibility through delivery presence and lyrical authority. Whether in music or later acting roles, his identity was anchored in confidence rather than explanation. The hand was visible, factual, and ultimately irrelevant to his effectiveness as an artist. Unlike performers who transform physical difference into branding, Rankin allowed normalcy to speak for itself. He did not exaggerate or mythologize his condition. Medical reality remained just that reality. This restraint reinforced authenticity, especially in a genre sensitive to anything perceived as artificial. His audience responded not to anatomy, but to conviction. Louis Rankin's legacy reminds us that not all unusual traits demand narrative focus. Some coexist naturally with talent requiring neither defense nor spotlight. By refusing to dramatize difference, Rankin demonstrated a deeper form of self-assurance, one rooted in acceptance, discipline, and the quiet power of being exactly who you are without apology. Cardi B. Cardi B represents a modern chapter in the conversation about body's visibility and control. Unlike figures shaped by congenital conditions, her physical transformation has been the result of openly acknowledged cosmetic procedures, a choice she has discussed publicly without euphemism. In an era where speculation often replaces fact, Cardi separated rumor from reality by stating clearly what was altered and why. Her body became a site of agency, not secrecy, challenging long-standing taboos around women, especially Black women owning aesthetic decisions. When a woman openly claims authorship over her body, why does discomfort grow louder instead of quieter? Her exaggerated curves quickly became inseparable from her image, but they never replaced her voice. Cardi's rise was driven by timing, delivery, and unfiltered personality, not by appearance alone. The contrast mattered. Audiences expecting image without substance were met with sharp humor, cultural awareness, and strategic self-presentation. She refused to pretend her body was natural perfection, rejecting the lie rather than selling it. That honesty reshaped the conversation, especially for younger viewers navigating unrealistic standards online. As her career evolved, Cardi maintained a clear boundary between personal choice and biological difference, a distinction often blurred in media narratives. She neither promoted nor apologized for her decisions. Instead, she framed them as part of a larger truth. Bodies change, identities expand, and control matters. Cardi B's significance lies not in alteration, but in authorship. Her body is not a gimmick or mystery, it is a statement. In claiming transparency, she exposed a deeper discomfort with autonomy, proving that ownership, not perfection, is what truly unsettles the spotlight. In exploring these stories, Legends of Black Excellence reminds us that greatness has never required physical uniformity. From bodies shaped by genetics to forms altered by survival or personal choice, each figure proves that difference is not an obstacle, it is a narrative. What society once labeled bizarre often became the foundation of influence, resilience, and cultural impact. Yet the question remains unresolved: do we celebrate these individuals because they succeeded despite their bodies, or because their bodies forced us to redefine excellence itself? As audiences, are we still measuring greatness by appearance, or are we finally prepared to let truth, talent, and courage set the standard?